In the gritty realm of crime, there is a league of women who command the ominous title of the most dangerous women in the world. In this dark underworld, they are the architects of heists, the mistresses of cons, and the orchestrators of chaos. Prepare for a riveting exploration as we look at their audacious criminal exploits, where these fierce females defy the law and redefine the boundaries of notoriety. Stephanie St Clair. Stephanie St Clair, a formidable figure in the tumultuous world of early 20th century Harlem, emerges from the pages of history as a woman of astonishing grit and influence. Born in the French Caribbean, she embarked on a life journey that would see her become a legendary racketeer in New York City. After arriving in the United States in 1912, St Clair faced hardships and even a brush with the criminal underworld. However, her unwavering determination led her to establish a thriving numbers game business in Harlem, providing economic opportunities for her community during a time of segregation and limited financial options. But St. Clair was not just a numbers runner, she was a fierce advocate for civil rights. She fearlessly called out police corruption and highlighted racial injustices, using her newspaper advertisements to educate and empower the people of Harlem. One of her most remarkable feats was her resistance against the mafia's encroachment into Harlem's gambling scene. While other operators succumbed to the pressure, St. Clair and her enforcer, Ellsworth "Bumpy" Johnson, stood their ground, even orchestrating police raids against Dutch Schultz's operations. In her later years, she transitioned from the criminal underworld to become a vocal proponent of political reform. Her marriage to Sufi Abdul Hamid, known as Black Hitler, ended in violence and her imprisonment in 1938. After her release, she lived a secluded life, transitioning from the underworld to a prosperous businesswoman, advocating for civil rights until her quiet death in 1969. Deborah Brown. Born in 1963, Deborah Brown's life took a harrowing turn when she became the accomplice of serial killer Alton Coleman during a 3-month-long crime spree across 6 states in the United States in 1984. Before meeting Coleman, Brown led a relatively normal life, raised in a disciplined family with no history of violence or criminal activity. However, her encounter with the sadistic rapist and murderer Coleman changed everything. Coleman, with his sinister influence, transformed Brown into his accomplice and slave, leading them on a trail of violence, including assaults, burglaries, rapes, and murders. What's particularly chilling is that their crimes weren't confined to a single state. They traveled across the Midwest, leaving a trail of terror in their wake. Most of their victims were African Americans, though authorities debated the presence of racial motives. Their modus operandi was unsettlingly effective. They would befriend their victims, gaining their trust before committing heinous acts. Their arrest in 1984 marked the end of their reign of terror, and Brown's unapologetic attitude during her trial sent shockwaves. Deborah Brown was ultimately sentenced to life in prison, while her partner in crime, Alton Coleman, faced the death penalty. Myra Hindley. Myra Hindley, an infamous English serial killer, left a dark and chilling mark on history as a partner in crime with Ian Brady. Born in Manchester in 1942, her life took a sinister turn when she met Brady, a stock clerk, in 1961. Hindley was smitten by him, falling under his complete control, despite his cruel and selfish nature. Together, they embarked on a heinous spree of rape and murder, targeting 5 innocent children. Their first victim, Pauline Reed, set a sinister precedent in 1963, followed by the disappearances of John Kilbride, Keith Bennett, Leslie Ann Downey, and the brutal murder of Edward Evans. The duo's reign of terror came to a halt in 1965 when Hindley's 17-year-old brother-in-law, David Smith, bravely reported Brady's murder of Edward Evans. This revelation led to their arrest and a shocking trial in 1966. Both Brady and Hindley pleaded not guilty to most of the murders, but justice prevailed. Brady was found guilty of 3 murders, while Hindley was found guilty of 2, in addition to harboring Brady's knowledge of Kilbride's murder. They were both sentenced to life in prison. Hindley's life took a different turn in 1970 when she severed ties with Brady. In 1987, she made headlines by confessing her involvement in all 5 murders, a stark contrast to her earlier protests of innocence. Despite numerous parole applications, she never regained her freedom and passed away in 2002 due to respiratory failure. Judy Moran. Judy Moran, a central figure in Melbourne's criminal underworld, was known for her involvement in the Moran criminal family and her connection to the infamous Gangland killings. Born on December 18, 1944 in Victoria, Australia, her life was intertwined with crime and tragedy. In 1963, she married Leslie John "Johnny" Cole, who later met a violent end in a Sydney drug-related gangland conflict in 1982. Desmond, also known as Tuppence, was the brother of Louis Moran and a key figure in the Moran family's tumultuous history. Following his murder in June 2009, Judy Moran, along with 3 others, found themselves at the center of a murder investigation. On June 15, 2009, Desmond Moran was fatally shot in Ascot Vale, jail. The subsequent arrests included Suzanne Kane, aged 45, who was the sister-in-law of Judy Moran's deceased son, Jason Moran. Kane's partner, Jeffrey Amour, was also arrested and charged with murder. During the investigation, the police alleged that Judy Moran had concealed the getaway car in her garage and later disposed of it, leading to her arrest. Furthermore, a hidden safe at Moran's home was discovered, containing weapons and other incriminating items. The legal proceedings resulted in convictions and sentences for those involved, with Judy Moran found guilty of Desmond Moran's murder and sentenced to 26 years in prison with a minimum of 21 years. Judy Bueno. Judy Bueno, born Judius Welty, led a life filled with dark secrets and a trail of mysterious deaths that unfolded like a chilling crime novel. Her story began in Texas in 1943, marked by tragedy as her mother passed away when she was just 4 years old. Sent to live with her grandparents, her life took a sinister turn when her father remarried, and she moved back to live with him and his new wife in New Mexico. Here she claimed to have endured abuse, starvation, and forced servitude, which led to her violent outburst at the age of 14, resulting in a short prison stint. After graduating from reform school in 1960, she embarked on a career as a nursing assistant, but a series of gruesome events would soon mark her life. Her first husband, James Goodyear, mysteriously died in 1971, followed by a house fire that conveniently brought her an insurance payout. In the years that followed, a string of boyfriends and her own son Michael met untimely deaths, all linked to arsenic poisoning. Her reign of terror continued until 1983, when she attempted to murder her boyfriend, John Gentry, with poisoned vitamin pills and orchestrated a car bombing that left him severely injured. Detectives began to uncover the web of deception, leading to her arrest, multiple convictions, and ultimately her execution in Florida's electric chair in 1998. Carol Bundy. Carol Bundy emerged from a turbulent upbringing. Raised by abusive alcoholic parents, her mother's early death and her father's sexual abuse marked her childhood. After being shuttled through foster homes, Bundy's life took an ominous turn when she married a man 39 years her senior at the tender age of 17. By the time she crossed paths with Doug Clark at 37, she had survived 3 tumultuous marriages, even attempting to bribe a lover's wife to leave him. Bundy's sordid life took a fateful turn in 1980 when she met Clark, and they uncovered their shared sinister fantasies. Their murderous spree began with the gruesome death of John Robert Murray, followed by the discovery of an unidentified woman's remains marked by a bullet hole. Bundy's arrest in 1980 exposed her involvement in Murray's murder, while her confession hinted at a more sinister series of crimes. She later pleaded guilty to 2 murders, sealing her fate with a 52-year-to-life sentence. Doug Clark, her accomplice, faced a death sentence. Bundy's unexpected plea deal left her serving a lengthy prison term, which eventually ended with her death from heart failure in 2003 at the age of 61. Rosemary West. Rosemary Pauline West, born in 1953, is a notorious English serial killer who, alongside her husband Fred West, committed a string of horrifying crimes that shocked the world. Their gruesome spree of violence spanned from 1971 to 1987, primarily in their home in Gloucester. Rose's chilling journey into darkness began when she met Fred at a bus stop in 1969, just after her 15th birthday. Initially repelled by his unkempt appearance, she soon fell under his disturbing spell. Fred's manipulation and charisma led her to abandon her job and become a full-time nanny to his children. Rose introduced Fred to her family, who disapproved of their relationship, but this didn't deter the couple. Their crimes escalated, starting with the murder of Rose's own 8-year-old stepdaughter, Charmaine, in 1971, followed by a series of gruesome murders. They would go on to bury some of their victims under the patio of their home, keeping their dark secrets hidden from the world. The majority of their victims were young women who suffered unimaginable torture before meeting their tragic end. Rose's involvement in these heinous acts painted a horrifying picture of her sadistic nature. In 1994, their reign of terror finally came to an end when they were arrested. Fred committed suicide in prison the same year, but Rose faced justice. She was convicted of 10 murders and is currently serving a life sentence in HM Prison Newhall. Carol Ann Fugate. Carol Ann Fugate's life took a dark and twisted turn when, at just 13 years old, she crossed paths with Charles Starkweather, a troubled young man 5 years her senior. Born in 1943, Carol lived in Lincoln, Nebraska with her mother and stepfather. Little did she know that this seemingly chance encounter would thrust her into a horrifying crime spree that would shock the nation. Their deadly journey began on January 21, 1958, when Starkweather shot and killed Carol's stepfather, Marion Bartlett, and her mother, Velda, at their home. Fugate's younger half-sister, Betty Jean, also fell victim to the violence. Carol claimed Starkweather had taken her family hostage and threatened harm if she didn't comply. Over the next 6 days, they barricaded themselves in the house, sending shivers down the spines of Carol's relatives, who grew suspicious. Their gruesome spree continued as they fled, leaving a trail of destruction across Nebraska and Wyoming, taking the lives of 10 more people, including 2 innocent teenagers, Robert Jensen and Carol King. Carol held a shotgun on a young high school couple during their terrifying rampage. Starkweather met his end in the electric chair in 1959, but Carol's ordeal was far from over. Despite her insistence that she was Starkweather's hostage, she was convicted as his accomplice and sentenced to life in prison. After serving 18 years, Carol was finally paroled, leaving behind the shadows of her past. She married, rebuilt her life, and even survived a tragic accident. Her story has inspired books, films, and documentaries, making her a haunting figure in the annals of crime history. Maria Licciardi. Maria Licciardi was a formidable figure in the shadowy world of the Italian Camorra. Born in 1951 in the heart of Naples, she was destined for a life of crime, growing up in a family deeply entrenched in the criminal underworld. Her father, a notorious local boss, set the stage for her criminal journey. Known as La Madrina, or the Godmother, among her peers, Maria Licciardi's rise to power was nothing short of remarkable. After her 2 brothers and husband were apprehended, she took the reins of the Licciardi clan, becoming the first female to lead in Camorra history. Under her guidance, the Secondigliano Alliance, a coalition of powerful Camorra clans, expanded its control over the city of Naples, dominating lucrative rackets such as drug trafficking and extortion. Maria Licciardi was not just a criminal mastermind, she was also a strategic thinker. She broke the traditional Camorra code by involving the clan in the prostitution trade, further boosting their profits. Despite her diminutive stature, she commanded respect and radiated a steely charisma, earning her the nickname the Little Girl. A combination of ruthlessness and practicality marked her reign. The Licciardi clan's occasional handouts to the impoverished neighborhood they controlled earned them goodwill among the locals, acting as a source of employment in a region plagued by unemployment. However, her empire eventually crumbled due to a disagreement over a shipment of pure heroin, leading to a deadly gang war and public outrage. Maria Licciardi became a fugitive, but continued to exert control over her criminal enterprise. Her ability to evade capture and orchestrate crimes from hiding earned her the title the Scarlet Pimpernel of Italy. In 2001, she was arrested but continued to wield power from behind bars. Her release in 2009 did little to diminish her influence. However, in 2021, she was arrested again. Samantha Luth. Samantha Louise Luthwaite, also known as the White Widow, is a British terrorist whose life story is as intriguing as it is disturbing. Born in 1983 in Banbridge, County Down, she initially led an ordinary life in Aylesbury, England. However, her path took a dramatic turn when she converted to Islam at the age of 17, adopting the name Sharafia. She later met and married Jermaine Lindsay, one of the perpetrators of the 7/7 London bombings. The 7/7 bombing took place on July 7, 2005, with Jermaine Lindsay detonating explosives on a subway train between King's Cross and Russell Square tube stations. This tragic event claimed the lives of 26 civilians. At the time of the attack, Samantha Luthwaite was 8 months pregnant. Following the bombing, Luthwaite reported her husband missing 6 days later. She was subsequently placed in protective custody, and it was later revealed that she had associations with Mohammed Siddique Khan, the ringleader of the London bombers. Before these devastating attacks, the 7/7 bombings thrust her into the spotlight as she denied prior knowledge of her husband's actions and portrayed herself as a victim. Controversially, she sold her story to a tabloid newspaper, which drew widespread criticism. What followed was a series of alarming events. Luthwaite's alleged involvement with the radical Islamic group Al-Shabaab led to accusations of orchestrating attacks, including a grenade attack during a football match and speculations about her role in the Westgate shopping mall attack. She became a fugitive from justice, with Interpol issuing a red notice for her arrest. As of February 2022, opinions about Samantha Luthwaite's fate diverge, with her uncle thinking she may be deceased, while security experts speculate she could be hiding in remote regions of Somalia or Tanzania. Fay Copeland. Fay Copeland, born in 1921, may seem like an unlikely partner in crime, but alongside her, husband Ray became the oldest couple in the United States to receive death sentences. The couple's criminal endeavors began innocently enough with cattle scams and forgeries. However, their activities took a chilling turn when they started targeting young hitchhikers and drifters. Their modus operandi was to befriend these unsuspecting individuals, convincing them to buy cattle using checks from accounts opened in their names. Once trust was gained, Ray would ruthlessly execute them with a .22 caliber rifle, leaving no witnesses. The bodies of their victims were buried on their property or stashed away in a well. Fay played a significant role in their crimes, even creating a macabre quilt from the victims' clothing. She maintained a list of farm workers that included both confirmed and suspected victims, marked with an ominous X. Their reign of terror eventually came to an end when a former accomplice grew suspicious and alerted the authorities. The subsequent investigation uncovered the grim truth hidden on their property. Fay Copeland's trial saw her claim ignorance of her husband's actions, citing battered woman syndrome. Despite this, she was found guilty on multiple counts and initially sentenced to death. However, her sentence was later commuted, leading to a wave of protests and debates about justice. In the end, Fay passed away in 2003, leaving behind a legacy of deception and death. Charlene Galo. Raised in a supportive home with a successful businessman father, Charlene Galo was initially a smart and shy child. However, as she entered adulthood, her life spiraled into a world of drugs and promiscuity. Charlene's marriages were turbulent, marked by her fascination with unconventional sexual desires. She sought threesomes and explored lesbian sex, which often strained her relationships. Her encounters with addiction and failed marriages hinted at her troubled psyche. It was in 1977 that Charlene crossed paths with Gerald Gallego, and their lives merged into a macabre partnership. Charlene's role in their sadomasochistic relationship was marked by sexual submission, a stark contrast to her earlier life. She endured painful experiences, which she later claimed to detest in court. Their sinister journey escalated when they started a spree of abductions, rapes, and murders, targeting young women in their 30s. Using Charlene as bait, they employed a .357 Magnum, subjected victims to repeated assaults by Gerald in their van, and employed various methods like shooting with a .25 Beretta or bludgeoning. Exceptions were Linda Aguilar and Virginia Moschel, both abducted alone and strangled. Charlene's willingness to participate hinted at a deeply disturbing psychology, while Gerald's abusive past contributed to their gruesome acts. Ultimately, the Gallegos' reign of terror came to an end with their arrest in 1980. Charlene's decision to testify against Gerald led to a plea deal and a relatively short prison sentence. She completed her term and was released. Ma Barker. Ma Barker, the infamous matriarch of the Barker Karpis gang, is a figure shrouded in mystery and controversy. Born as Arizona Clark in 1873, her early life seemed ordinary, but destiny had other plans for her. Legend has it that a fateful encounter with Jesse James as a young girl ignited her thirst for adventure beyond the law. She married George Barker, and together they struggled in poverty, raising 4 sons. It was these very sons who would ultimately lead her down a dark path. Her boys, Herman, Lloyd, Arthur, and Fred, delved into a life of crime, with Herman even taking his life to avoid capture. Ma Barker, instead of deterring her sons from a life of crime, seemed to condone it, famously saying, "If the good people of this town don't like my boys, then the good people know what to do." The Barker Karpis gang, formed by her son Fred and fellow inmate Alvin Karpis, embarked on a spree of robberies, kidnappings, and murders. Ma Barker's alleged involvement became a subject of debate. J. Edgar Hoover branded her a criminal mastermind, while Karpis insisted she was a simple, law-abiding woman. In 1935, a 4-hour gun battle with the FBI in Ocklawaha, Florida, led to Ma Barker's demise. Whether she was a typical Midwest mother or a criminal mastermind remains a hotly contested issue. Parker Bonnie. Bonnie Parker, born in 1910, became half of one of America's most notorious criminal couples during the Great Depression. Growing up in a challenging environment after her father's early death, Bonnie met Roy Thornton and married him at a young age. However, their marriage was tumultuous, and she later found herself working as a waitress in Dallas. Her life took a fateful turn when she met Clyde Barrow in 1930, sparking a passionate and dangerous romance. Clyde, born into poverty, had already encountered trouble with the law before their meeting. Together, Bonnie and Clyde started a crime spree that included robberies and violent encounters with the police. Their criminal exploits captured the attention of the American press, especially during the Public Enemy era from 1931 to 1934. Despite their preference for smaller targets like stores and funeral homes, they were linked to the murders of several police officers and civilians. Bonnie's image as a cigar-smoking gun moll became infamous, with photographs of her posing with firearms. The couple's actions led to a nationwide manhunt, with a growing public perception that Bonnie was a ruthless killer. The climax of their criminal career came in 1934 when they killed 2 highway patrolmen near Grapevine, Texas. Public opinion turned even more against them, and a substantial reward was placed on their heads. Bonnie Parker met a dramatic end in 1934. After a spree of robberies, the couple was ambushed and killed in a hail of bullets by a posse led by lawman Frank Hamer. The car they were in was riddled with over 100 bullets, leaving no chance for survival. The spectacle drew crowds, and some even tried to collect gruesome souvenirs. Despite their notoriety, Bonnie and Clyde were laid to rest separately. Thousands attended Parker's funeral, and her grave became a site of fascination. Katherine Maywood. Katherine Maywood played a central role in a disturbing and notorious murder case that sent shockwaves through Michigan in 1987. Teaming up with her partner Gwendolyn Gale Graham, both of whom worked as nurses' aides at the Alpine Manor nursing home in Walker, Michigan, Wood's life took a dark turn. Their friendship quickly evolved into a romantic relationship, and by 1986, they were entangled in a sinister love bond. In January 1987, Wood provided a chilling account of their crimes. She described how Graham, in a harrowing act, smothered an elderly Alzheimer's patient with a washcloth while Wood acted as a lookout. This woman became the first victim of their deadly spree. The murder was so discreet that it initially appeared natural, avoiding suspicion. Over the following months, Graham continued her reign of terror, allegedly murdering 4 more elderly patients, many of whom were suffering from Alzheimer's disease and were incapacitated. Wood testified that they turned the selection of victims into a macabre game, initially choosing victims with initials spelling M-U-R-D-E-R, and later counting each murder as a day to symbolize eternal love. Wood's poem to Graham, introduced during the trial, hauntingly concluded with the phrase, "You'll be mine forever and 5 days." Their story took a bizarre twist when the couple separated after Graham began dating another colleague, leading her to Texas. The shocking murder investigation unfolded in 1988 when Wood's ex-husband reported the crimes to the police. Despite a lack of physical evidence, Graham was found guilty of 5 counts of murder, receiving 5 life sentences. Wood, however, accepted a plea bargain, served her time, and was released in 2020. Anadina Arano Felix. Anadina Arano Felix is a notorious figure in the world of drug trafficking. She hails from a family deeply entrenched in the illicit drug trade, with 6 brothers who played prominent roles in the Tijuana cartel. Her early aspirations to become the Mazatlan Carnival Queen were dashed when her brothers became wanted by both the U.S. and Mexican governments. Anadina's life took a dark turn as she joined her family's drug business. Armed with a bachelor's degree in accounting, she became the logistical accountant for the Tijuana cartel. Her pivotal role came into the spotlight in 2000 when the cartel's financial mastermind fell. Anadina took charge, managing the money laundering operations that kept the criminal organization afloat. Remarkably, despite her brother's incarceration and death, Anadina not only kept the cartel alive, but also transformed its modus operandi. She adopted a more business-oriented approach, establishing alliances with other criminal groups instead of resorting to violence. Her leadership as one of the few women in the world to head a criminal organization earned her nicknames like La Jefa, La Madrina, and La Narcomami. Today, Anadina Arano Felix remains a powerful and enigmatic figure in the world of drug cartels, with an estimated net worth of $15 million. Virginia Hill. Virginia Hill's life was as intriguing as any Hollywood movie plot. This Alabama native took on a journey that would take her from a small town to the heart of organized crime in Chicago during the 1930s. Despite her humble beginnings, Virginia was destined for something more sensational. After a chaotic early marriage and a stint as a waitress at a mob-run establishment, she caught the eye of wealthy bookmaker Joseph Epstein, who became her financial advisor and, some say, lover. This connection led her into the inner circles of the Chicago outfit, where she served as a courier and mistress, earning her the reputation of being a central clearinghouse for organized crime intelligence. Virginia's life took another turn when she became involved with Charles Fischetti and later Bugsy Siegel. Her relationship with Siegel led them to Las Vegas, where they played a pivotal role in shaping the city's future as a gambling mecca. The story goes that Siegel named the Flamingo Resort after Virginia, earning her the nickname Flamingo. However, her life was marred by tragedy, including Siegel's mysterious murder in 1947. Virginia's complicated web of relationships, involvement in drug trafficking, and evasion of taxes kept her in the spotlight. Her appearance at the Kefauver hearings in 1951, where she denied knowledge of organized crime, added to her enigmatic persona. Virginia's life continued to be filled with ups and downs, including marriages, suicide attempts, and a move to Europe. Her death in Austria in 1966, officially ruled a suicide, left many unanswered questions. Rosetta Kudo. Rosetta Kudo, often referred to as Occhio e Ghiaccio, which means ice eyes in Italian, played a pivotal role in the shadowy world of organized crime. She was the sister of Raffaele Cutolo, the notorious boss of the Nuova Camorra Organizzata, a powerful criminal organization in Italy. Despite her unassuming appearance as a gray-haired, pious-looking woman who tended to her roses in Ottaviano, near Naples, Rosetta Kudo was the true power behind her brother brother's criminal empire. While Raphael was frequently incarcerated, she effectively managed the day-to-day operations of the NCO, ensuring its survival and growth. She held a low profile, unlike her outspoken brother, and preferred to operate discreetly. Rosetta's abilities extended beyond just managing criminal enterprises. She had a knack for negotiating with South American cocaine traffickers, was involved in high-stakes meetings with representatives of the Sicilian Mafia and rival Camorra clans, and narrowly escaped a police raid in 1981, cleverly hiding under a rug in a car driven by a local priest. After more than a decade in hiding, Rosetta Kudo turned herself in to the authorities in 1993. While she had been sentenced to prison on charges of mafia association, she was acquitted of 9 murder charges, successfully convincing authorities of her innocence. Despite her brother's claims that she was unaware of his criminal activities, some, including prosecutors, believed that Rosetta was the true force behind the NCO during her brother's long incarceration. Thelma Wright. Thelma rose to prominence as Philly's Queen Pin during the tumultuous drug epidemic of the 1980s. Thelma's journey took a dramatic turn after her husband, Jackie Wright, was tragically murdered, leaving behind a drug empire entwined with the Black Mafia. With courage and determination, she stepped into her late husband's shoes and assumed control. In 1991, she made a life-altering decision to leave the criminal world behind and take a new path for herself and her son. Transitioning from a life of illicit riches, Thelma emerged as a motivational speaker and a mentor to at-risk youth and incarcerated women. Her transition was far from easy, as she faced the realities of single motherhood and the harsh corporate world. Despite encountering a stubborn glass ceiling, she persevered, eventually finding financial stability in real estate. Thelma's inspiring journey led her to write a revealing memoir and establish the Thelma Wright Foundation, focusing on empowering young women to choose education over incarceration. She now dedicates herself to prison reform and uses her voice to guide women away from destructive paths. Inessa Tarva. Inessa Tarva, once seen as an ordinary housewife, became the central figure in a chilling crime spree that sent shockwaves through Russia. Alongside her husband, Roman Podkopev, daughters Victoria Tarva and Anastasia, and a network of criminal associates, Inessa orchestrated a reign of terror that included at least 30 murders and numerous robberies. Their malevolent activities unfolded over 6 years, with some offenses dating back to 1998. Inessa, a former nursery school teacher turned criminal mastermind, confessed that she considered murder and robbery as routine as going to the office. She brazenly proclaimed, "I am a gangster by nature," viewing killing as a means to earn money. The family's crimes, carried out like a gruesome routine, ranged from shooting police officers to mercilessly torturing and killing innocent victims, including children. Their gruesome acts were driven by avarice and a disregard for human life. In a shocking twist, Inessa's husband, Roman, who was a registered dentist, became complicit in their murderous endeavors, blurring the lines between their seemingly normal lives and their sinister criminal activities. Their arrest in 2013, following a shootout with police, marked the end of their reign of terror. Inessa, her younger daughter Anastasia, and other accomplices were captured, revealing the horrifying extent of their crimes. Thompson Harriston ascended to the pinnacle of the cocaine trade during the notorious 1980s crack epidemic that gripped the United States. Her journey from humble beginnings in South Central Los Angeles to becoming a powerful figure in the drug underworld is nothing short of remarkable. Thompson's early life was marked by adversity, including an eviction that left a lasting imprint on her determination to control her destiny. She entered the world of drug dealing while still in high school, selling substantial quantities of cocaine each week. Her marriage to Anthony Daff Mosley marked the beginning of a crack cocaine empire that spanned multiple U.S. cities. Tragedy struck when Daff was murdered, but Thompson Harriston refused to be deterred. She expanded her drug operation by recruiting distributors across the country and even sourced cocaine directly from Colombian producers. To conceal her illicit gains, she ventured into the legitimate business world with a hair distribution company, though authorities suspected it was used for money laundering. Thompson's empire eventually crumbled when her associate, Percy Cheese Bratton, cooperated with investigators, leading to her arrest during her son's 6th grade graduation. She was charged with drug conspiracy and money laundering, serving 12 years of a 15-year prison sentence. During her incarceration, Thompson Harriston underwent a transformation, embracing Christianity. After her release, she founded the Second Chance Evangelical Ministries. Her life's journey from drug queenpin to evangelist has been documented in her memoir, Queen Pin, and featured in documentaries, shedding light on the complex realities of the crack epidemic era and her remarkable path to redemption. Amelia Dyer. Amelia Dyer holds a gruesome distinction as one of Britain's most prolific murderers. Her sinister trade as a baby farmer during the 19th century concealed a horrifying secret, resulting in countless innocent lives lost. Originally trained as a nurse and midwife, Dyer's descent into infamy began when she adopted the sinister profession of a baby farmer. In an era where the law absolved fathers of illegitimate children from financial responsibility, desperate women sought help from baby farmers to provide their offspring with a secure future. Tragically, Dyer's promises of care and love were a facade, concealing a sinister agenda. Dyer's chilling methods evolved over time. Initially, she allowed infants to perish from neglect and starvation, using an opium-laced syrup known as Mother's Friend to silence their cries. Yet her insatiable greed led her down an even darker path. She resorted to outright murder, disposing of babies to maximize profits and avoid detection. While Dyer managed to evade justice for years, her sinister operation eventually unraveled. Suspicion arose when a doctor questioned the alarmingly high death rate among babies under her care. Dyer's reign of terror finally ended when infants' bodies were discovered in the Thames, linked to her through aliases. Her trial in 1896 ended swiftly, with an insanity defense falling flat. Although she confessed to a single murder, estimates suggest her true body count may have ranged from 200 to 400 victims. On June 10, 1896, justice was served as Amelia Dyer met her fate at the gallows. Some speculate a sinister connection between Dyer and Jack the Ripper due to the time frame of their crimes, but concrete evidence remains elusive. Martha Beck. Martha Beck, a central figure in one of America's most notorious crime duos, led a life steeped in tragedy and darkness. Born in 1920 in Florida, she faced early challenges due to obesity and premature puberty, which subjected her to rape and abuse within her family. At a young age, she ran away to join a circus, eventually drifting into the world of nursing and undertaking. Beck's journey was marred by unfortunate relationships, with her first marriage ending swiftly, leaving her a single mother. Despite her hardships, she dreamed of romantic love, immersing herself in novels and movies. In a desperate bid to escape her life, she resorted to placing Lonely Hearts ads, hoping for the love she yearned for. Her path converged with Raymond Fernandez, leading to a gruesome partnership. Together, they started on a murderous spree fueled by personal ads, luring unsuspecting victims into their sinister web. Beck posed as Fernandez's sister, creating an illusion of respectability. Her jealousy and violent temper often turned deadly as she strangled or subjected their victims to brutality. Beck's life of crime culminated in their conviction for multiple murders. While the pair confessed to some, the true extent of their horrors remains unknown. Their execution in 1951 marked the end of a gruesome chapter in criminal history, immortalized in books and films, leaving Martha Beck forever etched in infamy. Bel Gunnis. Bel Gunnis, a Norwegian immigrant, arrived in the United States in 1881. Born Brynhild Paulsdatter Sturseth in 1859, she embarked on a journey that would ultimately make her one of America's most infamous female serial killers. Gunnis's story unfolds like a sinister puzzle. Early on, she married Mads Albert Sorensen, and their life together took a sinister twist when their home and store burned down under suspicious circumstances, leading to insurance claims. Tragedy seemed to follow her as her husband mysteriously died, and she collected insurance money. But that was just the beginning. Gunnis's insatiable greed led her to poison her own children for insurance payouts. As her lust for wealth grew, she began to lure wealthy men to her farm using lovelorn columns, only for them to mysteriously vanish once they arrived. In 1908, a fire engulfed her farmhouse, revealing a nightmarish truth buried beneath. Skeletal remains of over 40 victims, including her own children, were unearthed on her property. Bel Gunnis seemingly disappeared, leaving behind a legacy of unsolved mysteries and unrelenting horror. This was all about the stories of the most dangerous women. Thank you for staying with us. If you enjoy our content, our newest videos are just a click away.